What if the oldest stories ever written were not mythology? What if they were eyewitness accounts? 6,000 years ago, before Egypt, before Greece, before Rome, a civilization rose in Mesopotamia. They left behind clay tablets, thousands of them, and on those tablets, they described beings who descended from the sky, beings who shaped humanity with their own hands and ruled the earth for hundreds of thousands of years. They called them the Anunnaki. And what they wrote should not be possible. The word Anunnaki comes from ancient Sumerian. It translates, roughly, as those who came from heaven to earth. These were the supreme gods of the world's first civilization. Sumer, modern-day Iraq, around 4500 BCE. At the top, Anu, king of all gods. His son Enlil ruled the earth and winds. His other son, Enki. Enki was the god of wisdom, of water, of science, and according to the texts, the architect of the human race. But unlike Greek gods who lived on a mountain, the Anunnaki held councils, gave orders, signed decrees. The text read less like mythology and more like government records. And here is where it starts to get strange. In the 1970s, a linguist named Zecharia Sitchin published a book that would shake the world of alternative history to its core. The book was called The 12th Planet, and his central claim was both simple and staggering. He believed he had decoded the Sumerian cuneiform tablets, and what they described was not mythology at all. It was the literal documented history of contact between humanity and an extraterrestrial civilization. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki originated from a planet he called Nibiru, a massive world on a long elliptical orbit that brings it dangerously close to our solar system once every 3,600 years. They arrived on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago, not out of curiosity, not out of compassion, but with a very specific and entirely practical mission. They needed gold, large quantities of it, to repair and stabilize their own planet's deteriorating atmosphere. For a time, their own servant class, beings known as the Igigi, performed this labor deep underground. But the work was brutal, relentless, and the Igigi eventually refused. They rebelled, and so Enki, the god of wisdom and science, proposed a solution that would echo through the entire history of our species. He would engineer a new worker, not from nothing, but from what was already here. He would take the hominids already walking the surface of the earth and elevate them, modify their genetics, accelerate their intelligence, create a being capable of complex labor, of following instructions, of building civilizations. And this is not a modern interpretation or a loose reading of ancient poetry. The Epic of Atrahasis, one of the oldest written texts ever discovered, describes this process in precise and unsettling detail. Gods mixing clay with divine blood to breathe life into a new creature. A creature made to serve. Mainstream scholars largely dismiss Sitchin's translations as selective and inaccurate. But here is what they cannot easily dismiss. These Sumerian creation stories predate the biblical book of Genesis by more than 1,000 years. Someone wrote this first. Someone believed this happened, and they recorded it with the same matter-of-fact certainty that we use today to document historical events. Set Sitchin aside entirely for a moment, because even without his theories, even without the tablets, the translations, and the decades of controversy that surround them, There are things on this planet that have no satisfying explanation, physical structures that exist in quiet defiance of everything we believe was possible at the time they were built. And the more carefully you examine them, the more uncomfortable the silence around them becomes. The Great Pyramid of Giza was constructed around 2560 BCE. It contains over 2 million individual stone blocks, some of which weigh 80 tons or more. It is aligned to true north with an accuracy of 0.05 degrees, a level of precision that surpasses the Greenwich Observatory, which was built with modern instrumentation thousands of years later. We have found the villages where the workers lived. We have found their tools, their bread, their medical records, and yet no complete, universally accepted explanation exists for how a structure of that scale was built with that level of accuracy, using only the technology available in the Bronze Age. Then there is Pumapunku, located in Bolivia at an altitude of nearly 13,000 feet above sea level. The stone blocks found at this site are cut with a level of geometric precision that modern engineers describe as machined. Perfectly flat surfaces, interlocking joints with tolerances of fractions of a millimeter, circular holes bored deep into granite, a material so dense and hard that it can only be worked with diamond-tipped tools. The Tiwanaku culture that inhabited this region left no written record of how any of this was accomplished. No blueprints, no instructions, no oral tradition that counts for, just the stones themselves, sitting in silence at the edge of the world. And then there is perhaps the most unsettling discovery of all. Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey, a vast complex of massive carved stone pillars, arranged in precise ceremonial circles, discovered buried beneath the earth in the 1990s. Archaeologists dated the site to approximately 12,000 years ago, and that single fact changes everything we thought we knew. 12,000 years ago predates the invention of agriculture. It predates the formation of the first cities. It predates every threshold that historians have traditionally used to define the beginning of organized human civilization. Someone built an enormous, sophisticated, deliberately designed ritual complex before civilization was supposed to exist. And then they buried it, covered it completely with earth, and walked away. No culture has ever claimed it. No tradition explains it. It simply waits underground in silence. But there is one detail that almost never surfaces in the popular conversation around the Anunnaki, and it may be the most quietly disturbing piece of all. The Sumerian king list is an ancient clay document that records the names and reign lengths of the earliest known rulers of Sumer and for the kings who governed before the Great Flood. The numbers are extraordinary. Individual rulers are recorded as having reigned for 20,000 years, 30,000 years, in one case, over 40,000 years. These are not poetic exaggerations buried in a religious text. They appear as dry administrative records in the same document, in the same format, alongside kings whose reigns last a perfectly ordinary 30 or 40 years. After the flood, everything changes. The reign lengths collapse instantly to normal human lifespans, and the Bible records the exact same pattern. Before Noah, the patriarchs lived for centuries. After the flood, decades. Two entirely separate ancient traditions, from two entirely separate cultures, recording the same sudden and unexplained shift in human longevity. At the same point in history, something changed after that flood. Something that had been present before it was gone afterward. Was it taken? Or was it deliberately removed? Were the Anunnaki real gods who descended from the sky and shaped the destiny of our species? Were they an advanced, extraterrestrial civilization that used humanity as a labor force and then quietly withdrew when the work was done? Or are they the most sophisticated mythology the human mind has ever produced? A way of explaining our own existence, our own intelligence, our own seemingly impossible leap from stone, tools to written language in the span of a few thousand years? The honest answer, the only intellectually defensible answer, is that we do not know. And perhaps sitting with that uncertainty rather than rushing past it, is the most important thing we can do. What we do know is this: 6,000 years ago, human beings looked up at the same night, a sky you see when you step outside tonight, and they were absolutely certain that something extraordinary had been here. They wrote it down in clay. They carved it into stone. They built monuments to it that have outlasted every empire, every war, every civilization that rose and fell in the millennia since. Whatever the Anunnaki were, they mattered enough to remember. The question is not whether they existed. The question that lingers long after this video ends is why. After 6,000 years, we are still looking for the answer. Part 2 is coming, where we go directly into the Sumerian tablets line by line and let the oldest words ever written speak for themselves. Subscribe so you don't miss it.